Day 257, 1,461 days of ignoring the Trump administration. I am not a self-help guru, just trying to help myself. I personally think that it is too narrow to call the leader of the Trump administration racist, because if his natural inclination to dislike any person that doesn't agree with him was confined to simply other races, I don't think that would satisfy his personal need for revenge, his personal need to enact vengeance, and his personal need to make other people's lives miserable. I feel that hurling that particular insult at him isn't necessarily off base, but I do think it confines the scope of his distaste for other people. It doesn't take into account so many other aspects of his hate. Let's remember that his son-in-law is Jewish, for example, and his daughter converted to Judaism. The daughter he likes. Let's also take into account that his chief of staff is a woman, that his head of the FBI is brown-skinned, and so on. Are there specifically black people in his cabinet? I don't know. I don't pay that much attention to each and every person surrounding the leader of the Trump administration, aka the Trump administration. But I do know that his attorney general is a woman, a white woman, but a woman nonetheless, and probably the kind of white woman who gets pleasure from asking that stupid right-wing question, what is a woman? Believe me when I say I am in no way building a case for the hypocritical DEI proclivities of the leader of the Trump administration and the Trump administration. I am building a case that simply saying that he is racist is not taking into account all of the other malevolence that is going on. I was watching the classic Dave Chappelle sketch about Prince moments ago. One of the two classic sketches that Dave co-opted from Charlie Murphy. They are Charlie Murphy's stories, after all. It got me thinking that not only would the leader of the Trump administration not care that Prince was a black man, he would only care that Prince was having fun, expressing his talent at basketball and enjoying making pancakes, because that is where the leader of the Trump administration's hatred is rooted. He dislikes people who enjoy life. But it also made me think that he might like Dave Chappelle because Dave Chappelle is transphobic, and that gives us a good idea of what we are dealing with when it comes to race relations. And so we should ignore the Trump administration. Day 258 of 1,461 days of ignoring the Trump administration. I am not a self-help guru. I'm just trying to help myself. The Dopey speech that the Secretary of Defense gave to the world's generals last week. I mean, I'll call him Secretary of War if he really, really needs me to. Which was followed by a Dopey speech that the President of the United States, that title hasn't changed, but the meaning sure has, is in the sense of the narrative arc of a graphic novel, what democracy looks like. As much as I wish that those guys didn't exist, this is what democracy looks like, as the chant by protesters goes. If you put yourself in the shoes of the other side, their mindset is, I was elected. Part of what I get to do by being elected is to appoint this other dude or dudette, and that dude or dudette does their duty. It can apply to the entire Trump administration, not just the leader of the Trump administration. Everyone there believes, hey, we were appointed, we were confirmed. The reason I say that's what democracy looks like is because if you think about this in terms of a graphic novel or any tale, there is a story arc. In order for people like myself who look at the leader of the Trump administration and the Trump administration and say, hey, that does not represent what I believe in, that does not represent what I think of as progress, that does not represent what I wish for when I think of my future and the future of the people I care about, to get to the America we want, we must continue to read through to the next page and the next page and the next page after that, because there will continue to be pages. Best-selling books beget sequels, baby. I guarantee you There are people out there that believe everything that has happened leading up to the last 10 years of the leader of the Trump administration and the Trump administration is antithetical to what they see and what they believe and what they want. And that's how the story goes. We need to continue to be mindful, optimistic, and hopeful that the story we're committed to is worth our consideration. Keep turning pages, baby. Keep ignoring the Trump administration. Day 259 of 1,461 days of ignoring Trump administration. I am not a self-help guru. I'm just trying to help myself. I am seeing exhaustion from regular people. I am seeing exhaustion from regular people who are content creators who talk about politics. I am seeing exhaustion from regular people who are content creators who talk about politics and also call themselves journalists. Because, frankly, we're all regular people who are content creators who talk about politics and also call ourselves journalists now, aren't we? We're all content creators now. God damn it. Everyone's a content creator with their goddamn phone. People are exhausted from dealing with assholes. It's like that John Lennon song, I'm so tired. I am so tired. That's what it is. I defy the most fervent supporter of the leader of the Trump administration to tell me that he is not a giant a-hole, because I hear it over and over and over again from people who are supporters of the leader of the Trump administration who say, I support his policies, but I don't base it on character. And they find a way to excuse every bit of disgusting behavior because they see that disgusting behavior in themselves. Well, look, get your act together. Start acting right. Stop supporting people who are assholes. I don't care if you know how to do the job at all. When I got my first job at a grocery store, I didn't know how to work the register. When I got a job at the bookstore, I didn't know anything about putting books on a shelf. But what I did come into it with is being authentic, a decently friendly guy, and even when I wasn't, at least you could trust that I was being straight with you, or as straight as a gay guy can be. Even if behind the scenes I was kind of a jerk because I hated myself, at least out in the world I knew enough to know that if you don't want people to hate you, you have to not act hateful. I want people to come along to fill these roles in our government who are pleasant and easy to get along with. And if they're going to be out in public, which they should be if they're going to be transparent, then they should be enjoyable to interact with. This is how I want to see us run the nation after we are done ignoring the Trump administration. Day 260 of 1,461 days of ignoring the Trump administration. I am not a self-help guru. I'm just trying to help myself. AI believes that I am more fair and balanced than bots or hired propagandists or plain old cult members that choose to waste time in my comments section. On day 258, I talked about the dopey speeches that the leader of the Trump administration and his flunky gave to the world's generals who sat stone-faced as two total incompetents who did nothing to earn their positions other than to hone their skills at shamelessness and immorality, lectured them, and worse, bored the living shit out of them. In that video, I stated that regardless of my opinion, that is what democracy looks like. These are duly elected and appointed people as laid out in the Constitution. When I asked AI to transcribe my notes for that video, it also generated the following overview that I will read to you now. The speaker criticizes recent speeches by the Secretary of Defense and the President, highlighting that their actions reflect the democratic process of political appointments within the Trump administration. Although the speaker disagrees with the administration's values and impact, they acknowledge that democracy involves differing viewpoints and ongoing political narratives. They urge maintaining hope and optimism for the future and recommend ignoring the Trump administration for now as the best course of action. As you can see, AI believes that my analysis is opinionated but fair, and what I take away from that is a confidence in what I already know. I look at the world through mindful, optimistic, and hopeful eyes, informed by reason, empathy, and a healthy set of boundaries. For those who come into my comments to defend the indefensible, my reaction to you is a light-hearted shake of the head, similar to how I would react to a small child who touches a stove. I would play them Hot, Hot, Hot by Buster Poindexter as a reminder. Children have to make mistakes to learn lessons. I am always surprised at how adult children are touching stoves all over this nation. I hope your wounds heal and that you will ignore the Trump administration. Day 261 of 1,461 days of ignoring the Trump administration. I am not a self-help guru. I'm just trying to help myself. We are being governed by a group whose followers believe as they do. They believe that they are better. They believe that they are better than those who do not see the world as they do. They believe that they are better than those who they say are woke. The fact is, no one is better than anyone else. And if you were going to try to make the argument that some people are better than others, I would say that the people who are better are those who do not believe that they are better. If you are a person that believes that somehow your DNA makes you better than someone else, then you are not better than the person you are thinking that about. But you can be. That is one of the glorious aspects of the human mind. It is very malleable. How do we know? We know because the leader of the Trump administration and the Trump administration have cultivated such a substantial following for an ideology that is rooted in trying to divide people and trying to use that group of divided people as a weapon against those who do not fall under their corrupt, disingenuous, and malevolent spell. Do you know the album The Wall by Pink Floyd? It is a concept album about building emotional walls. But I am quite certain that a fan of The Wall, who is also a fan of the leader of the Trump administration and the Trump administration, probably thinks that album is about building a wall in the southern border. But anyway, I am not as much of a fan of The Wall as I am of The Dark Side of the Moon, but I enjoy The Wall. And I would never try to take away from the fact that The Wall is a substantial, classic, and legendary work of art. And so I would hope that the leader of the Trump administration, and the followers of the leader of the Trump administration would endeavor to think about their fellow citizens as works of art that they can appreciate as much as anyone else in the population, whether they follow or ignore the Trump administration. Day 262 of 1,461 days of ignoring the Trump administration. I am not a self-help guru. I'm just trying to help myself. If you develop the ability, like the leader of the Trump administration has through a lifetime of honing this skill, if you develop the ability to be shameless, and you have trained your shameless mind to lie without even being aware that you're lying anymore, so that you simply say and do whatever it is you have to say and do in order to create the outcome that you want, with only fidelity to your personal truth, then you can get as far as the leader of the Trump administration. If you also have a father that gives you hundreds of millions of dollars to squander. Most people, and when I say most, I mean all people, expect that when they ask someone something, that what they hear in return is the truth. Most people, and when I say most, I mean all, again, do not expect and frankly are not prepared to deal with someone who is completely committed to lying to their face. It is not a decision. It is not, I'm going to lie to you. It is a default setting. It is a system. It is not a decision. It is not Jim Carrey in Liar, Liar. It is Don Wary in Crier, Crier. It is a system honed over a lifetime of lying and deceiving. We know this because we have the receipts, and that is how a cult leader cultivates cult members, by systematically lying to them and lying to them and lying to them and lying to them. Because people do not believe that someone would do that. They do not believe that a person could possibly have that within them to lie and lie and lie and lie and lie and endlessly lie. But that is how a con man cultivates marks, by taking advantage of our goodwill. I do not blame the followers of the leader of the Trump administration. I do not blame them for being taken advantage of by someone who is this highly skilled. When you sit down to play poker with someone who is a hustler, when you play pool with someone who is a hustler, when you do that, you need to remember that you could be being hustled, because that's what a hustler does. A hustler lies to you. The hustler has developed skills to make you feel as if you're not being hustled. And when they hustle you, you learn a lesson from that. And I hope you will learn a lesson if you are the subject of this kind of manipulation, because it is never too late to ignore the Trump administration. Day 263 of 1,461 days of ignoring the Trump administration. I am not a self-help guru. I'm just trying to help myself. We made it. We are now legal. 1,461 days of ignoring the Trump administration has made it to 18%. That's right, 18% of the final term of the leader of the Trump administration. And as usual, I prefer to use this milestone to acknowledge the reason why I am doing this series in the first place. When the leader of the Trump administration was elected again, I felt the same sense of doom that I felt the first time, but I felt it even more strongly. And I felt that way because of the fact that so many of my fellow Americans did not see what I see in this person, or worse, and more likely, had been misinformed and misled. And so I asked myself how I would deal with this on a daily basis as someone who consumes so much news media. I decided that I would stop paying so much attention to that news media, but the title, sort of, kind of, a little bit ignoring the Trump administration, isn't quite as catchy as ignoring the Trump administration, which elicits so much engagement from baited and triggered followers of the leader of the Trump administration. So that is how we arrived where we are now. I choose to pay less attention to the news media that was infiltrating my brain and claiming my mind and taking up my time, and decided to use that reclaimed mind and regained time to put towards creative efforts that would make my life better, that would make the world around me better, and allow me the time to have more substantial interactions with the people that I care about. I have accomplished this over the last 263 days of ignoring the Trump administration, and I encourage you and anyone that you care about to adopt a similar mode of mindfulness, a similar operation of optimism, and a similar having of hope. We can't ignore everything that's happening around us, and we can't ignore the Trump administration completely because ignorance is not healthy. But indulging too heavily in noticing all of the behavior of the leader of the Trump administration and the Trump administration is not living. It is a small death. Like Sebastian Bach of Kid Row sang, "It's 18 and life, baby." Don't succumb to an out of control situation. Continue to ignore the Trump administration.